What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Pens and Tea. My name is Carrie, and today we're going to continue along in the series where I re-review pens that I have had in my collection, / just re-review all of my collection. And we're doing a little bit of a pilot blast this week because I have a lot of them and I love them. And they are some of the pens that I've had the longest. If you've missed the last 2 days, go check that out. I did the Custom 74 and the Custom 823, both of which I have had in different models for roughly 10 years. This pen today, not quite that long, closer to about 5-ish years, but no less adored. And that is the Pilot Custom 912. Now, this one's a little bit special because for those of you who've watched any of my videos, you know that I have an aftermarket feed in here. I do have the Ebonite feed, and to answer all of your questions that I know are coming, I purchased it from nibsmith.com. This is the one that has the 3 slits in it. You can also get one that has 2 slits in it. You can also get a red version. I got the black version. So a little bit different. The plastic feed that it initially comes with, still glorious like any plastic Pilot feed. It's just not as wet. And I do have to talk about that in a minute because this pen up until now has been bulletproof, but I had something happen the other day and I'm going to talk about that, but later. Before I get to that in just mere moments, I would like to say thank you for those of you who have been watching this series thus far. It is doing okay in the algorithm. I'm still stuck in that loop of I just can't seem to find any traction. None of my videos are doing super well, and I don't know why. So, if you can do me a solid, I don't normally do this in the beginning of the video, but if you can do me a solid, hit the like, hit the subscribe, and leave a comment. All of those help push these videos through the algorithm. While I'm not trying to be an algorithm princess and be like, 10 bajillion subscribers, it is nice to know that the content that I make is being watched. You know what I mean? So that would be phenomenal. And then if you wanted to put the cherry on top, you could also hit the link in the description to help support me on Patreon if you end up liking what I do. But regardless, let's get into it. So I'm going to flip the camera around so that I can show you in detail what this bad boy is like, and then of course do a writing sample because it wouldn't be a good video if it wasn't for a writing sample. All right, so before we get into the pen in like 30 seconds, probably longer than that because let's be real, I talk a lot, I want to let you know the problem that I had with said pen. As you may or may not know, again, if you've watched any of my previous videos talking about this, but this pen is beyond even fire hose wet. It is milliseconds away from just spilling ink everywhere. It is that wet, which you'll see in a moment. And I typically have it inked up with Diamine Writer's Blood because it is one of my all-time favorite inks. And it's always done me well in this pen, and I really, really like this ink when it's super wet, and this, of course, is that. So I decided to not do Diamine Writer's Blood for once and try out a different ink in that pen. I've put many inks in the pen. I really like the chromatic shading ones, like 123, 224 from Sailor, which I was thinking potentially, but I went with the old standby because I was like, all right, let's try a Troublemaker ink. I've had this one in other Pilot pens before, like my Custom 74, my 823. In the 74, it's actually dynamite because it really does show the different colors you'll get. So I thought this would be great to put in the 912 with the Falcon nib and the Ebonite feed because it's just that much more wet, and I was curious to see what would happen with the ink. So I put in Troublemaker Abalone, however you want to pronounce it. I put this in there and it didn't work. Literally nothing. No matter what I did, priming the feed, letting, shaking the wazoo out of it, letting the ink hit the page, like when it would prime out, and like a bloop would hit the paper, and then using the tip of the nib in that bloop and, coloring around with it, seeing if it will get that capillary action, and no go. It just was not happening. The feed was fully saturated. I could see it, but it would not leave the feed to travel down the rest of the tines to the tip of the pen and therefore function like normal. I tried so many things. I spent nearly 30 minutes trying different things to get it to work, and it just would not do it. If you are a member of my paid tier of Patreon, then you already know this because I have discussed it with you guys. So unfortunately, I did have to clean out the abalone from this pen, and I went back to my trusty, reliable diamine writer's blood. So therefore, when you see the writing sample, just know that this is what's in it. So I'll bring out some paper here. This, of course, is the pen. I know it bothers some of you that I keep the sticker on it. It's over there. And I don't know why. I really don't. I have left it on almost all of my Pilot pens. I don't know why. I cannot answer that question. I just, for whatever reason, like to leave it on my Pilot pens. When I had two of these, one with a Waverly nib, which, fun fact, I still actually have, that we'll be listing for sale towards the end of the month, and then this one, it was really nice because then I didn't have to open the pen up to decide or to find out like which nib was what. It would just tell me by the sticker. But this pen is definitely a classic looking pen. There's not a whole lot to it. It is basically a tube, a black tube with silver trim. This, to my knowledge, is the only design you can get with it. So it's sort of a take it or leave it situation, which for me works because I prefer silver trim. You, of course, get 2 stars, custom 912 Pilot made in Japan on the ring here, that big chunky one. But that's basically it. There's not a whole lot to adore about the look of this pen other than it's a classic. It's not offensive, but it doesn't like go holy moly, wow, wow, wow. Then you get to the grip section, which does flare out a little bit, but not really a ton. And if you unscrew the body, it comes with a proprietary Pilot Con 70 cartridge converter with metal threads, so I do not recommend eyedroppering. But of course, do whatever you want. It's your pen. And then, like I said, this is the aftermarket ebonite feed, which you can tell is just soaked all of that juicy ink up. And this is what I mean for the troublemaker. Like, the feed would be fully saturated like this, but it couldn't make it from the tip of the feed down to the tip of the pen. I think because this is such a wet writing pen, and yes, this is a wet writing ink, but this one I think is probably just a little bit more, that it was almost too wet and didn't have enough tensile strength to make it down. That's the only explanation I can come up with. And then you do get the Pilot number 10 size. That is a proprietary sizing. It's slightly smaller than what a traditional number 6 size nib would be, but it's pretty close. And it fits the pen in my opinion. The FA for Falcon. And of course, you have some cut out fins here at the side to help assist with that flex. Fits gloriously in my fingers. The threads, you don't feel them. You do get some schmutz stuck in there over time, but you can clean it out if you want to. I just don't. And then it does simply push to post if you wish. I don't like it that way at all. I'm a little sensitive to back-weighted pens. Not that this throws it off a ton, because there's really not a whole lot of metal in this pen. It's really just in the body, like in the grip section where the converter goes. That's really the only bit of metal. So for those of you with a bit larger hands, you probably won't have an issue with it. I just don't like it. So this pen is nuts. Like, it is just unreasonably wet, I think. I don't think most people would like it that way. And I am not putting any pressure on this, by the way. It's really hard to speak and write at the same time. Give it a try if you've never done it. I'm putting no pressure on that whatsoever. And I mean, you can see in the shadows and the like sort of glare of my overhead lighting, this is nuts. Absolutely nuts. I mean, I've been rambling now for almost 30 seconds after writing that, and check this out. Yeah, it is bananas. I don't think most people would like how wet this is. I do. I will say it is ever so slightly more wet than typical, but it's minute difference. I think, like I said, for most part, I wouldn't recommend bumping it up to the third slit. I would recommend most people, if you're going to get the ebonite feed, just stick with the two slits in the tines or in the feed, because I think 3 will be too wet for some. I do like the 3 for when I do put drier inks in it. So famously, J.Herbin Lait, for example, that one does really well in here with the 3 slits. But then you also now run into problems where you can't use certain inks that don't have the tensile strength to get down the nib. I will say, though, in the many years I've owned this pen, that is the first time that that's happened to me. But as always, my experiences get shared with you guys. So the benefit of it being ridiculously wet is that you can flex at pretty good speed and you do not have to worry about railroading. I mean, there's no flex pen that I know that you can go that fast for and never have to worry about ink. There's zero starvation in this pen. There is if you keep the plastic feed. You have to be much more cognizant of what you're doing. It's not as bad as the Pilot Falcon pen, but you have to slow down a little bit. But this combination, no you don't. Not that you ever would with this, but you can reverse write. It is very scratchy, obviously super dry. And just don't. But in regular writing, it is very, very smooth, obviously crazy wet. I've never had any hard starts or skips other than putting this ink in there where it just wouldn't start ever. So take that for what you will, whether you think that's a good ratio or not. That is your call. I would say the regular no pressure whatsoever line is probably, it is finer than a typical Western fine, but it is thicker than a typical Japanese fine. But it is pretty close. But if you have any pressure to your writing at all, and I mean like even just your natural writing pressure, you're not going to get that fine line. you're just not. You have to consciously like really let off the pressure because of how wet that pen is. But it is super fun to play with. Holy moly, it is so fun. And if you ever need an ink to be like crazy wet, to show like sheen or shimmer or anything like that, really do that configuration because you're going to get there. And this, of course, is on Tomoe River paper because it is the best. So just so you know that for funsies as well. So do I still like this pen after many, many, many years of owning it? Oh, yeah, baby. I sure do. Like I said, this is the go-to pen that I almost always have inked up. It is one of my favorites. Typically, I don't like the quote-unquote boring design, but honestly, guys, this is glorious. It just makes me so happy, and I feel dangerous when I write with something this wet. I will say, if you're journaling with it, excuse me, like I do quite a bit, you do have to wait at the end of the page for quite a while, or get something to blot it before you turn the page, because I did it for funsies on this page here, and I just closed it without doing a whole lot. And yeah, you definitely get some transfer. So yeah, anywho's, that's what I think about this pen. I adore it. I love it. I need to go have a sip of tea because my voice is starting to crack like a pubescent 12-year-old boy. So yeah, hit the like, subscribe, everything I said in the beginning of the video. But I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, guys, if you're still watching this far in, you're the reason I ultimately make these videos, and you're the reason why I keep going, even when my videos just don't have any traction for some reason. But yeah, let's just wrap it on up and say I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.